Hey everybody, it's Professor Smith. So for this video, I wanted to take some time to talk about the 5 questions that I put in your prompt to try and help you analyze, understand, think about, process, and develop your writing for this first project on fake news and analyzing a fake news article. Because I mean, in essence, I don't want you to just be writing an essay saying that this is a piece of fake news and here's why it's fake news and here's what the truth is. Like, this isn't necessarily an expose piece. It's more a piece about taking a really deep dive into a single source and analyzing it and really trying to understand not just what it is, but why it is and what it means and how it affects us in our society as individuals, as large groups, in voting or whatever the case may be. So I'm hoping that you don't just look at those questions and answer them in one sentence, but really try and use those questions as a lens, as glasses, to analyze in depth the fake news source that you've chosen, whether it's one of the 4 that I've posted, or whether it's one that you're choosing on your own and that we're working on together. So we're going to turn over to that real quick. And by that, I mean there's a piece of literature produced by the Center for Media Literacy that goes into the 5 core concepts of understanding media, which are the questions are derived from. So I want to take a look at that together. I'm also going to post the link for this into the description below this video. I'm also going to post it to in the email that I send out to everybody telling you that this is there. It's a really great resource for this project, and it's probably an even better resource for you in developing your media literacy skills because we live in a world where we are constantly bombarded by media that is created by anybody and everybody. Because for $15 and a little bit of computer knowledge, you can create a website that says practically anything. So we're going to transition over to the text, and I'm going to talk over it and show you some of it. We'll read a little bit, and then I'm going to come back at the end and talk for a few more moments. So I'll see y'all in a little bit. Hi again, everybody. This is Professor Smith. I wanted to take some time today to talk a little bit about the 5 questions I put into our prompt. As I mentioned in the prompt and in the video discussing it, these questions don't need to be answered one by one. Each one of these 5 questions shouldn't necessarily be its own paragraph, because it would make for a little bit boring of writing. So I'm hoping that these questions spark ideas and allow you to know some of the things that I'd really like for you to talk about and address. And ultimately, by understanding these questions and being able to answer them clearly, effectively, confidently, um, in your own fake news articles that you've chosen for this project, if you can answer these 5s in relation to what you've chosen, chances are you've done a fairly decent job on this project. So where do these questions come from? Um, they come from a foundational concept that there are 4 concepts for media and for us to understand media. So as we apply these 5 questions and concepts to fake news, these same 5 questions and concepts can be applied to TV shows, movies, newspapers, social media posts. Media is the creation of some form of information that is transmitted to people, and media can come in so many different ways, from dance to painting. So for us, for this project, we have chosen to look at fake news articles or fake news reporting or misleading reporting or things along those lines. But it all, for the most part, bases off these 4 concepts that all media messages are constructed. They're constructed by people, they're constructed by organizations, groups that have their own self-interest. Media messages are constructive using creative language with its own rules. And when it says language, this also means imagery as well. Different people experience the same media differently. Have you ever read one book and another person read the same book and both of you had different interpretations? Have you ever seen on the news as of late a Republican who believes one thing and a Democrat who believes the exact opposite? Different people's experience, but they're experiencing the same thing. Media have embedded values and points of view, meaning that within the writings, within the broadcasts, there are values that are trying to be pushed through, points of view that people want you to think. If it's a Democratic leaning news publication, they'll probably want you to vote for their candidate to take their point of view. And if it's a Republican leaning publication, the same thing but on their side. And fifthly, and probably most importantly, most media messages are organized to gain profit or power. Why do people create media messages? There is some reason for doing it, whether it's their own personal gain, whether it's the benefit of the public, whatever that might be. So, as you can see, this little booklet that I'm looking at right now is published by the Center for Media Literacy, and I'm going to be posting the link to this in the description section of the video so you have access to it as well. To really understand what they're talking about and what I'm looking for, looking at this in more depth will help you. For one, if we look on the side, each one of the five is broken up, right? One, who created the message? The guiding questions helps you to dig a little bit deeper. So by looking at some of these, and again, for any of them, will help you answer or write in more depth for you to get a little bit more. What kind of text is it? Being able to address that. What are the various elements that make it up? Which technologies are used? What choices are made? So being able to really answer these, for you, simplistic questions will be beneficial for me, your reader, because I haven't read your original source. So I would really recommend looking at these guiding questions on the side to help you think about these questions and to think about the core concepts in a little bit more depth. So, who created the message? There are different ways for you to find that out, whether that's the author, whether that's looking some information about the actual publication itself. What can you find out about these people? What can you find out about who published it? What can you find out about who is backing this message, this fake news article? Is it just a person? What does that person stand to gain? Is it a group of people? So the first question is simple, but it is a profound one to understanding that media texts are not just natural, although they look real. Media texts are built just as buildings and highways are put together. A plan is made, the building blocks are gathered, and ordinary people get paid to do various jobs. So, by finding out a little bit about who created the message, might help you to understand why they're doing it and to address some of the questions that we're going to be moving into. If you don't know who the organization is, then you don't really know what's going on. So, for instance, this is probably one of my favorite examples of knowing who has created the message. And unfortunately, the website was taken down, but let's say, for instance, you were doing a report on Martin Luther King, and you happened upon martinlutherking.org. Just from the .org and the title of the website, you might think it's legitimate, but martinlutherking.org is owned by neo-Nazis. It was a group called the Stormfront that put it out. So on the surface, it looked like a normal website, but as you start to read a little bit deeper, and as you start to scroll towards the bottom and look at who's actually publishing the information, you actually got to realize that it was a neo-Nazi group. So just because it's on the web, or just because it's on TV, doesn't mean that you should believe it. Who's creating the message and who's talking about it? So we move into next, what creative techniques are used to attract my attention? So as you read this, you might start to see some stuff about visual media. So you might not have a lot of that in what you've chosen. So what techniques should you be looking for? Well, are there any pictures? And if so, what pictures did they choose? Then mostly you'll be looking at language. So what was the title? There's certain titles for news articles that are really intense and don't genuinely or accurately represent what the actual article is about. What language is odd, is weird? Are they being super opinionated? So, like, what are they doing to attract your attention, to draw you in, to get you to believe in something that is, or what has been proven later not to be true? Media messages are constructed using creative language. So what can you find any of that? So by reading this in more depth, you will get a little bit more of understanding. I don't want to read this whole thing to you. If you do have questions, please feel free to email me or call me using my number on the syllabus. Question 3, and this one for me is one of the more confusing ones. How might different people understand this message differently from me? So if we break it down from this core concept that different people experience the same media messages differently, well, why is that the case, and what does that mean? As I said a little bit earlier, a Democrat might see a piece of news one way, and a Republican might see a piece of news as another way. The foundation of truth in that instant doesn't necessarily exist, because that lefty has their truth, and that righty has their truth, that Democrat has their truth, and that Republican has their truth, and there's no sort of common ground. So as you're analyzing and viewing your fake news article, if it is political and if it is something against the left, well, can you put yourself in the shoes of the left and try and understand it, or in the shoes of the right and understand it? And if you've chosen, a fake news article about Trump or any of the Republicans, can you view it from the opposing side and try to step outside of your own self, your own understanding, and see how somebody else might view this differently than you? Alright, so we're going to scroll down a little bit more. What lifestyles, what values, and points of view are represented or omitted from this message? So if media has embedded values in it, what are values? It's what we believe in. It's the things we carry to be a good father, a good student, a celebrated athlete, to be an environmentalist. It's what we do, it's how we carry ourselves, it's what we believe in. Our points of view, it's how we see the world. For those who see marriage as something for men and women to do what they want, that's your point of view, and people who don't agree with that, that's their point of view. But it's how you believe the world should work. So media messages, especially commercials, try and not only sell you a product. They don't just try and sell you a truck, but they try and sell you this value or point of view that if you buy this truck, you will be an outdoors person, or you will be a really attractive person who gets all the girls or all the guys. But they don't just sell you that. Like Coca-Cola, everything's a smile. So are they selling Coca-Cola, or are they selling the idea that this brown liquid that is literally poison but is absolutely delicious makes you smile, makes you happy? So they're selling the sort of point of view or value that Coca-Cola equals happiness. So as you're reading through or watching, what are they promising? What do they want people to feel at the end of this? So start thinking about, like, okay, what feelings am I going to get? The decisions, like the lifestyles, the attitudes, the behaviors, like what am I supposed to feel and believe and think? To a certain degree, how am I supposed to act as a result of it? If it's a fake news article against Donald Trump, the point of view is that Donald Trump's a bad guy and we got to vote him out. If it's a bad fake news article, misleading, a lie about Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in the House, then the value there is most likely going to be, the value of protecting America, of being a good citizen, and the point of view is going to be something along the lines of these people are evil and they need to be, taken out of power. So what is it that they're putting in here? What are, as it says here, what are the points of view? What are they even omitting? What are they not telling you? And lastly, why is this message being sent? For me, this is, one of the more important of the 5. People create media messages for a reason. Even trolls will do it for a joke to create some crazy buzz on the internet. But there is that purpose. Nobody just does it for no reason. Typically, a fake news article is going to be for power or for profit. It's people who want your money, or it's people who want to get into power, but they know that the truth, honesty, isn't necessarily going to get them. That isn't going to get them to get you to believe, for you to vote. So they utilize these fake news articles, these stories, this misrepresentation, of the truth, to circumvent reasonable debate and get you to vote, to get me to vote, to get all of us to vote in something that genuinely isn't in our best interest. Well, it might be in our best interest, but they're lying about why it's in our best interest. And that's this. So it says 68 pages. It's not 68 pages. It's 6 pages. I think if you were to read this in a little bit more depth, it will help you to understand how I'm asking you to look at your articles that you've chosen. How to look at, to analyze, critique, and ultimately write about your fake news article. Because if you're just coming in and looking on the surface, you might run out of things to say. But if you really go through these questions and really try and look at the fake news article with a magnifying glass and really take your time with it, you'll have a really kick-ass paper, one that's going to be great and filled with information that is exciting and interesting and not just surface material. So I hope this helps a little bit. Again, I'm going to post this for you guys and gals. I'm also going to post 1 or 2 more short things that I think might help you to understand media literacy concepts and questions and how to apply them to media that we view. All right, actually, excuse me. The last thing that I will say. All right, let me maybe go to video for this. All right, well, that was interesting, wasn't it? So, again, you have this source. I would really recommend reading it, taking a deeper dive into it. You could even do simple Google or internet searches for media literacy questions, and this stuff is developed a little bit further. So, again, don't just answer the 5 questions in relation to your fake news article. Use them to analyze and then talk about it. So I'm hoping that there's some depth. Feel free to quote from what I've posted, not from what I'm saying, but from the Media Literacy Center for Media Literacy publication with the 5 core concepts and questions. Excuse me. So hopefully that is helpful. For me, I know it is, so I'm hoping that you all feel the same way too as you are going through this. So, lastly, before I get out of here, I just wanted to be a quick reminder of your project and what stage we are at. We are in the generating idea stage, so please be looking for articles over the weekend, and by Tuesday, when we start up again, Monday's Labor Day, so when we start up again Tuesday, I'd really like for you all to have pinpointed the article, the source, the fake news, bit of information that you are going to choose, you are going to write about. So, thank you, and again, any questions, you know how to find me. I'll talk to you soon.